Hi guys, welcome to the Sunday slot today. It's 10:30, it's Sunday morning, it's a beautiful day. We're going to talk about, obviously, more tragic news, but this is the John O'Brien story. I mean, this is a guy that, from natural obscurity, took everything to Parliament and actually got the laws changed because of a tragic event. It happened in January 2002. So we're going to bring John on to talk about this and his journey and how he took that from start to finish. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. John, it's obviously an emotive subject to talk about. It wells me up a bit, actually, when I talk about it as well. When I was thinking about it during the week and how it would affect me if it was my children as well. Let's take you back to the beginning. Let's talk about Lee. Who was Lee? Who was he as a kid?
Yeah, I have no hesitations of talking about my son, Jim, because I loved him and I want to remember him. But yeah, I'll tell you about Lee. It was unfortunate that Lee was born in 1985, but me and his mum, we split up and we got divorced. I was like anybody else. We went through that, and his mum moved away and to Dalgety Bay, and I used to get Lee at weekends when he was only 5-year-old. We split up when Lee was 5, so I would get him most weekends, and I would take him, and we would do things. We would go fishing. We'd go and play pool, swimming, all that stuff. And
all the things you should be doing as a kid. Never get away from the console, for goodness sake.
Having fun, So it was an ordinary dad and son situation.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. I would get him at the weekend because I was working, you see, at the time. I was working at Tullis Russell's, and I was on
same place as me.
Yes, I wasn't on continental shifts, and and I used to work 6 night shifts a week. So that was my shifts, 6. So the weekend I would get my son, and I look forward to that, and it made me happy. We went places, Craigtown Park, beach, anything like that, and that's how it was for the next several years.
So he was just like a kid, like any normal kid, like you or I was when we were younger as well, eh?
That's right. So Lee went to Inverkeithing High School, and that's where he was. When he left school, he changed. He says to me that he didn't want to stay in that area of Dalgety Bay anymore. He always wanted to. It was really difficult when I took him home because he said he didn't want to go home. I says, well, you have to, because I have to go to work. But when he left school, it was a different story. He said, I want to come and stay with you, Dad. And I said, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. Methal's a bit different for Dalgety Bay. It's a bit, maybe more options and whatever it is. But it ended up, he did come and stay with me when he was 15. And I think he finished off his schooling in Kirtland High School, and then at Sandy Brae, he finished his schooling off there. And he was really, really keen on motorbikes. And he actually built a motorbike at Sandy Brae High School. They taught him how to build a motorbike. And he loved that. And he used to go out riding it in places and things like that. So he was getting round that way. And then, when he turned 16 in September, I says, well, you have to try and get a job or go to college. So basically, he did that. And he met a girl, and he fell in love at that age at 16, and he was doing well. So, and then he got a job as a butcher in Kirkcaldy at Weepers the Butchers.
Oh wow!
And it was like that. It was early starts in the morning, but he was enjoying it. He was making haggis and things like that for Robbie Burns's day, and he was excited about that. But and as I said, he met a girl, and at 16, he wanted to move in with her. And I said, well, it's a bit early, but if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah.
So it was more or less making plans for his future. And his girlfriend was, Gina. He moved in with her at Methil Brae. And things seemed to be going along. Not too bad, fine. And then one day, Jim, in 2002, January the 16th, I was getting ready to go to work on a night shift at TR's. And basically, I just got a phone call for his girlfriend, and she simply just said these words: "Come round quick, Lee's dead." I went, "Excuse me, is this a joke?" She says, "No, the police are here, and the paramedics are here. Come round, Lee's dead." And I panicked and jumped in the car. I ran round, and when I got to Methil Bray, the police were there. I went into the house, and the paramedics were there, and Lee was lying on the kitchen floor, and I could see that he was dead. And I knelt down, and I says to the paramedics, "Could you do anything to help him? Is there any way?" They says, "No, he's been dead too long." And at that point, Jim, it just becomes emotional. I just broke down in tears. I cuddled him, told him I loved him. And, that was me in complete shock.
Yeah.
Until the paramedics come, the funeral come, and that was it. His life was over at 16 years old. And,
It's going to have been absolutely devastating for somebody just to phone you up like that. And it's like, really? You've got to be joking.
Jim, it was devastating. And Lee was my only son. And, I had to tell his mum that he was dead. And, it was too much for anybody. How do you handle this sort of situation? I know it happens every day in life. People get told there's been an accident, your son's dead or your daughter's dead. But, Lee was fine and healthy, and I couldn't understand why he was dead until I asked the police and the paramedics, how did he die? And they said, "Well, we found this tin of gas here beside him. We suspect that he was sniffing gas." And I says, "Why would anybody do that? What's that about?" And similarly, people get a high off it. It's become a drug.
Yeah.
And, the police told me exactly that he bought it at a local shop. And I realised, somebody told me, the law is you've got to be 18 to buy this product, lighter fuel. And Lee was only 16. And when I went to the shop and asked, I says, basically, "Why did you sell my son this product when he was only 16? And why did you not ID him?" And basically the shopkeeper, apologised and says, "I just never had the time," or whatever the reason was. I was busy, whatever. But
well, you would normally think there was nothing wrong, because that was never a thing.
Yeah, that's right.
In my time, it was Evo Stick. House proud in that they were clamping down on it. House proud wouldn't sell you Evo Stick unless you were over a certain age. You had to ID yourself, because it was a big thing. There were people dying of Evo Stick, and so
well, that's right. But there was no law to say that shopkeeper had to ID him. And when the police put out a press release that very week, because that very week there was 2 youths died. My son died, and there was another youth died with the same thing in Kirkcaldy. So the police put out a press release, and it had front page, the Sun, the Record, every paper. And then soon the press were at my door knocking, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to talk about it." The other family, in Kirkcaldy, they didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to remain anonymous, and I respect that. But no, I wanted to talk about it, and I said, "I think it's ridiculous that a shopkeeper can sell lighter fuel and not ID anybody. I want something done about this," I said. And, that's what I set out. I'd done some research, and I got in touch with a charity called Resolve, and I met up with the chief executive, and he told me, "John, it's quite common." And he told me that over 2,000 children have died sniffing solvents in one way or another in the past 10 years.
Jeez.
And the youngest only been 7 years old, a young lad from Cowdenbeath in Fife, actually. And the way it was with that is, his mum was giving him a bath, so the press release said, and they went to get a towel, and they were only gone a few moments, and the young lad had picked up a tin of deodorant and sprayed it around the bathroom, and he inhaled that, and he died. So that is the facts. I could not believe that so many. I actually said that more children die from solvent misuse than any other illegal drug.
Yeah.
And I could not believe that. And I had to say, why is this? And this is because there's no law to say that in Scotland, they had the law in England
Yeah.
to say that if anybody was going to buy lighter fuel, you had to ask for ID. But there was no law in Scotland to say that shopkeepers had to ask for ID.
I mean, that's amazing when you think about it. We've got a few people watching this morning that wants to say hello. You've got Marie. Good morning, Marie. Thanks for watching. Craig Sutherland, he says he knew your son well. And
Right.
Tracy Brodie actually remembered your son very well as well. And it's obviously so sad, you know, the circumstances. I mean, I remember when I was younger as well. I mean, we used to be able to buy lighter fluid. And we didn't do anything like that with it, but we used to just be stupid and actually just spray it and cause fires and just stupid things. But you know, but almost there for the grace of God go I. You know, the very fact that that was never put into my mind that was a thing, it's probably why I'm here today.
Yeah. Well, I asked the question to the chief executive of the Resolve. I said, why is so many people using lighter fuel? They said, well, basically, John, because it's cheap. It's only £1 a tin. And you can sniff it and get an instant hit. Now, I was uneducated. I didn't know that as a parent. You know, I knew about other drugs and alcohol, but I knew nothing about solvents. And to think that people were actually buying a tin of lighter fuel for £1, and in some shops you could buy 3 for £1. It just depends what shop you are. So I wanted this law changed. I said, I'm going to do something about this. I don't, you know, I was really angry as a bereaved parent, and, you know, I wanted to change the laws. So I approached Fife Council, and they directed me. They said, look, we can't change the laws. If you want laws changed, you have to go to the Scottish government and change the laws and campaign. So I approached, I said, right, point me in the direction. And they pointed me in the direction of the government of the day. We never had an MSP here, or any MP here. And no, an MSP. We never had an MSP here in Fife at this area of Methil and Buckhaven, because Henry McLeish was he was in a bit of trouble at the time. So I had to go to Kirkcaldy and contact Marlon Livingston, and I contacted her and I met with her, and she says, what is it you want to do? I said, I want to change the laws in the whole of Scotland to make it a law that all shopkeepers must ID anybody buying lighter fuel.
And what was Marlon's response? You know, was she quite surprised about that? Because you don't just, I mean, did you never think to yourself, who am I, just one person to change the law? Or was that never an option?
That's right. She said, that's a big task, John. If you want to change the law, you're going to have to do something to get support. I said, well, what do you mean? Start a petition, get names, and contact other people. The more support you've got, then the more I can do in the Scottish Parliament for you. So I says, right then, me and my family, we set off to get a petition. And what we've done is we hit high streets, we set up a petition, we hit galas, anywhere we can find people, and we asked them if they would sign this petition. They said, what's it about? I said, it's to stop shopkeepers selling illegal products to children under. Oh yeah, we'll sign that. Oh, we read about you. Yeah, you know.
Did you ever get anybody never wanted to sign or thought, well, you know, is that a good idea? You know, did you ever get anybody like that?
No, we never got anybody like that. I got 100% support, because most people said, yeah, that's a great thing, John. Yeah, we'll support you. You know, I went
what was their reaction? Was everybody quite surprised that this wasn't a mandatory thing anyway?
Yeah, they were surprised, and a lot of people knew that it was going on, because a lot of people says, oh, I've seen people doing that, sniffing, and you know, I've walked into shops and I've seen people buying products like cigarettes and alcohol and gas and no being ID'd. I said, well, that's all wrong, you know. So as I said, we set out to get names and petitions, the whole family, and we worked really hard. You know, even at Markench Highland Games, we got somebody to sign it. Dougery Scott, you know, the film actor.
Brilliant.
He signed it. He said, John, I've read about you and I'll definitely sign it. You know, and that was great. So we gathered 15,000 names.
Wow.
And, yeah, that's what we done in a matter of 6 months.
And when you think about the logic of this, John, social media never existed at that time. There was no online petitions. You had to go out boots on the ground, and you had to generate all this activity through manual, hard graft work,
Yeah.
perseverance. What drove you to that? What drove you? Was it the memory of your son?
Yeah. What drove me, I was a bereaved parent, and I could not believe that my son was dead to a product that could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm.
I had to ask, you know, I spoke to people and I said, why is this product still on sale? It's an old product. Hardly anybody uses it. You can buy 10 litres in a pound shop for £1. Why would anybody want to buy lighter fuel? And basically, I'm going to be totally honest, because people were targeting it to abuse it, because it was a substance misuse that people could get high on. And it was as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've done. And, you know, I got the 15,000 names. I also wrote to all the leaders, all the councils in Scotland. I got 100% reply back for every leader and council authorities. Yeah, we'll support you because we have the same problem here in Perth, Stirling, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Inverness, the Orkneys, Ayrshire. Every one of those leader councillors wrote me a nice letter back to say, yeah, we will support you on that basic. On that, then, I took 15,000 names, letters from 32 authorities to the MSP, Marlon Livingston. I said, there's your support. Now, support me to get to the Scottish Parliament to actually do something. And she did. She got me to the Scottish Parliament. I've done a talk in the Scottish Parliament to the Petitions Committee, and they said, why should we change this law? I says, because Scotland has fallen behind the times. They're not in line with England, Wales and Ireland, where IDs must be asked for when buying lighter fuel.
How long ago before that then was England and Wales in line? I mean, had they brought this in years ago?
Yeah, they were in line years and years ago because they seen the problem. As I said, Resolve was a big charity then and based in England, and they approached the makers of lighter fuel, you know, like Swan and all these people who actually made this product. And the producers of the product were quite sympathetic, and they says, look, we will help you out. They gave money to charities to raise awareness on the dangers of solvent misuse.
Yeah.
So they were actually doing their bit. But when I got to the Scottish Parliament, I met that Lord Advocate, Colin Boyd, and he wasn't very keen on changing the laws. And he was talking about it's entrapment for shopkeepers. And I said, but if shopkeepers are doing the right thing and trading legally, they've nothing to worry about. And Colin Boyd was he's a wee bit on the fence at that time. He says, well, what we'll do is, John, we'll get trading standards in Fife to do a test purchase. And, you know, we'll try and figure out how bad the situation is.
How on earth, when you think about it, would that be entrapment for shopkeepers if they shouldn't be doing it in the first place?
That's correct. I said, well, if the shopkeepers are trading legally, they have nothing to worry about. So they've done a test purchase in Fife. And, you know, 40% of the shops actually failed the test. They sold lighter fuel to young kids at 14 and 15 underage without asking for ID. And the Lord Advocate said, that's shocking. He says, look, you're well known in Fife, so I'll do another test purchase in South Ayrshire. So they've done another test purchase in South Ayrshire, you know, to catch shopkeepers out. And more than 58% of the shopkeepers failed in South Ayrshire.
Wow.
The Lord Advocate was astounded at this. And he says, John, I can see your point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out across Scotland to 32 local authorities that they can have their trading standards, and we will change the laws that every shopkeeper in Scotland must ID young people when buying lighter fuel, any kind like that. Yeah. That was quite an achievement.
I've got some clips here from newspapers and that, but before I start that, you've got Lana's obviously said, you'll obviously know Lana, that's clearly probably your daughter.
Yeah, that's my daughter.
Well done, Dad. And Mary came back on and she said that, you know, I was a friend of Lynn when younger. John's a friend too, and he's doing great work. You know, it's fantastic that you did that. I'm going to share some clips. So the press, when did the press come into this? You know, was this initial when it all happened at the beginning?
Yeah, the press come in day one. when this happened, the press, the press are quick to latch on. The police done a press release, and the Sun and the Daily Record, the Star, they all come knocking at the door, and they were wanting a story to sell their papers. And I said, I'll give you a story. There's shopkeepers out there selling lighter fuel to children underage just for profit. They're not bothering to ID, and that was astounding. The facts were there for themselves.
So who is this team here then? Is this the trust that you set up?
Yeah, this is a trust, and some of the trustees. What actually happened was I was working from home. I never had anything to do. I didn't even own a computer, Jim.
Yeah.
And I says, I'm going to get a computer. How am I going to get one? I went into a computer shop, Megatronics, and basically I just says to the boy, could you give me a computer? He said, why would I give you a computer free? I says, because I'm doing all this work in the community to save lives and help people. He says, right, understand. And he gave me a computer for nothing.
I know the guys at Megatronics. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he gave me a computer for nothing, which means that I could work all the faster. I never had an office, so I went down to Thompson House at the time that was run by the college in Dunfermline. I can't remember the name of the college, but and I met the manager of Thompson House, and I says, look, can I rent an office? I've got some money, I could maybe rent it a day a week. She said, are you that boy who's fighting the campaign for solvent abuse? I said, yes. She said, I'll give you an office. I'll give you an office free, no charge. And I'll give you a conference room to have any conferences and committee meetings that you want. That was astounded at that generosity. I even approached a printing company, and I says, I've needed some leaflets, but I've no money. And they said, what do you want? I said, I need leaflets to put out to help to warn people. And the man said, you got a logo? I says, no. He says, I'll make you a logo and I'll make you leaflets because I see you doing good work in the community and I'll back your campaign. He made me 20,000 leaflets. He gave me a logo and he gave me everything that I needed to get this message across. Yeah. How generous was that for free?
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, that's where obviously the name came from then, I take it, Lost.
Yeah, well, we had to set up a charity name. And I thought, well, Lee O'Brien's Solvent Trust was a good name. And that means his name would always be there and, to become a trust. So that's what we've done. And it was 2 years later, we registered as a charity trust. But we still had a long way to go in the campaign, Jim, because once I'd finished in Scotland and changed all the laws, my attention turned to London and Downing Street and Westminster. I said, I want to get to Westminster and Downing Street. So I was introduced to my MP at the time, a nice man, John McDougall. I don't know if you remember John.
Yeah, I know John, yep.
Yeah, and he was our MP at the time, and he says, what is it you want me to do for you? I said, I want you to get me to Downing Street. I want to meet the Prime Minister and put in this petition and tell him to change the laws in Scotland and to help more education in schools, etc. He said, that is a big task. You'll need to get me support if you want. I says, well, what I'll do is I'll write to all the MPs in Westminster and I'll ask them to support your early day motion. He said, do you know how many MPs there is? I says, no, I don't know how many. He said, there's nearly 700. I said, that'll not stop me. So I wrote to all these MPs in Westminster a personal letter asking them to support my campaign, calling for changes in the laws to protect children. And I got nearly 400 replies from MPs to say, yeah, we will support you, John, and we will support your campaign because we believe in you and we believe that we have the same problems in our restricted areas and we will do that.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
I got a letter from Jerry Adams, the MP.
Really?
At the time, and he says, John, yeah, I would love to support you, but unfortunately I'm banned at the moment from Westminster. But I support you in theory, he says.
I wonder why that was.
yeah. But what I'm saying is I got more than half the support in Westminster, all party support in Westminster to support me in my campaign. So at that, I was armed with the MP, and we approached Downing Street, and we got to Downing Street, and we knocked on the door at number 10, and I put my message across to number 10, the Prime Minister at the time, and also met the Prime Minister at the time as well, and I put that across to say, we need you to support us in Scotland to help bring changes to the laws. And we actually got things introduced to the national curriculum of education that solvent misuse and drug misuse must be continued in schools. So with that, I'd reached my second goal, which was really, really good. From there, I was focusing on Europe. And, I had to say, well, I'm going to take it further to the European human rights courts and things like that. And I got in touch with my European.
How on earth did you manage to get all these people on your side? How was that? I mean, did you do all yourself, or did you have a team? Yeah, I mean, we'd spoke about it just behind the scenes, obviously, about how important the press was in your campaigning, and obviously a lot of this has been put forward. So was that instrumental in you changing things? Was the fact that the press were behind you?
Yes, I would lift the phone and take a message to the press. I have to say that I had a good backing from. This is Hugh Henry, the Deputy Justice Minister, and this is the launch when we actually launched the test purchasing for the whole of Scotland. That was launched in Edinburgh at the time, and I got a lot of support. But I have to say, my family supported me. My daughter Susan, she actually worked for Trading Standards at the time, and she was the one who done all the letter writing to MSPs, MPs. And as I said, we approached Catherine Styler at the time, who was our European MP. And I said, I want to get to the European Court of Human Rights to put this forward to the manufacturers.
Why did you have to go as far as the European Court for Human Rights? Would this not just be a thing for Scotland? And why would you? Was there barriers in place, or was there a legislation you had to change?
Yeah, obviously, at the time, we were part of the European Union before Brexit. And, Europe actually ruled, and they actually made laws for UK and the whole of Europe. So I was wanting to get to Europe and actually put this forward to ask help. I wasn't afraid to knock on anybody's door. I would have took this all the way whatsoever. But as I said, my family were a driving force. I had support from other charities, Resolve, and I had support from the government of the day to get me there. And, so once we'd done the set up the charity and things, we put on a conference here in Methil, the very first conference in the whole of Scotland for solvent misuse. And, it was backed up by TV and radio. I learned to work with the press. Sometimes, I had to actually, I would phone STV and say, look, we're doing a launch in Glenrothes tomorrow. We're going to launch a campaign. Could you bring some TV cameras along and record it and get that message across? They said, well, we're really busy at the moment. We might not make that. I said, well, BBC's going to be there. They've already confirmed that they're going to be there. And really.
And where BBC going to be there?
No, I hadn't phoned the BBC yet. But, this is, okay, what time is it? I said, it's in the Kingdom Centre, such and such. And that's where we're going to be. Right, we'll be there. Then I had to go and phone the BBC and say, look, are you going to be there tomorrow? We're doing a lunch in Fife to raise awareness. Well, we don't know how busy we are. I said, well, STV's got just confirmed they're going to be there. All right, okay. What time is it? And, I learned to work with the press.
Well done.
To get my message across, I was willing to go to any lengths to get that message. And I did. We got to great lengths, been to Downing Street, etc., etc. We've done all that. Anything to raise awareness on the subject. And the more awareness I could raise, the more lives we could save.
Yeah. I've got a comment from Paul Maxwell here. He says, well done, John, for all your hard work on this change. Susan and the family have done a great work and been strong, always heavy on our minds. I mean, as a family, I mean, how did it did it take its toll on you? I mean, there's bound to have been difficult times. It's never going to be flying and easy. So, you know, was that really difficult? And was there times you thought you thought they weren't getting any further forward?
Yeah, there was always times like that, Jim, and it does affect families. It affects brothers and sisters, mums, dads, cousins, aunties, grannies, everybody. You know, I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but when I actually lost a child, to lose a child is losing your future. You know, if you lose a parent or something like that, then you're losing your past. But when you lose a child, my ambitions was to see my son growing up and experiencing life, getting married, having children, getting a car, going on holidays, you know, to experience the wonderful opportunities that life can give you, get a job, you know, choose life, not drugs, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that was the message I wanted to get across, and I wanted to see my son doing that. I used to speak to my son when I was, you know, younger, and he was young. I said, when I'm old, I want you to bury me in Macduff Cemetery. Right, I'll say to that, Dad. Now it turned out the other way.
Yeah.
I buried him at that time, you know. It was a shock, and you know, it's a shock that you never get over. We're scarred for life, Jim, when you lose a child. And I suppose a lot of bereaved parents would actually back me on that. I had to go to find counselling to get somebody to speak to about this. You know, I made an appointment at Cruise. I had to wait 3 months on an appointment to see somebody. And when I did see somebody, you know, they said, we can't really help you on this situation. We've not really got the experience or whatever. But I was directed to another group, Jim. It was a group for bereaved parents where I met other bereaved parents who'd lost their sons and daughters.
Yep.
And some of them had lost them in horrific circumstances. You know, one 5-year-old boy was killed in a fire when he was playing with matches.
Dearie me.
And they found him in a cupboard. And another 4-year-old was run over by a bus just as her mum was getting off the bus. You know, these were terrific, horrific things for parents. But I learned in a group therapy that was, we were supporting each other in group therapy. How are you today? Yeah, oh, I'm really bad. How long has it been since your son died? Some of them were suicides. Oh, it's been 10 years. And they were no further forward. You know, I was lucky that I had something that I could actually combat this way and focus on, which was the campaign and the charity. That took my mind off it, and that would drive me to help. The more people I could help, Jim, the more better I felt for myself.
Yeah, effectively, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that you needed to do to come to terms with it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And
so
you
got as far as the European Court. You know, what happened then? I mean, what happened with the European Court? I mean, did they change something, or did they say something, or, you know, what happened at that point?
Well, I never actually reached that point yet because there was a lot of things come into place before that. I remember one day I was sitting in the house and I got a letter, and, you know, this letter came through the post and it was written in gold ink and things. And it says, "You're invited to Buckingham Palace. The Queen wants to meet you." And I said, "What? Me?" I thought it must be a wind-up or something like that. Wait, meet me? So I phoned Buckingham Palace, says, "What is this all about?" They said, "Yeah, you're getting a Pioneer Award because you've done something for the nation, etc." I says, "Oh, really?" Right. So I've never been to London before. So I went down to London and I got all dressed up, best suit, Dickie Boo and everything. And I went to Buckingham Palace. And, you know, I said, "I can't believe I'm going to meet the Queen." So up the marble staircase, and then these big doors opened, and there was about 200 people in this big hall. And I thought, "Oh, I must be in the wrong place." "No, you're in here." So the first people I seen Ringo Starr, and I seen football players, David Attenborough. I seen David Attenborough, and I seen Jackie Stewart, the world champion racing driver. I said, "I've got to speak to him." I said, "Jackie, am I in the right place here? A Pioneer Award." "Yeah, John, us Scottish people were here. You worked hard. You deserve it just as much as anybody else in this room. And don't forget it."
It's funny how you'd naturally go straight for the Scotsman.
Yeah, Actually, aye. I thought, well,
It must be
I
a
know
Scottish
somebody
thing,
here.
Because that's exactly what I would do.
But there was lots of dignitaries and film stars and actors and footballers and pop stars. I couldn't believe it. I was in. So it come time to meet the Queen, and there was a photographer there for the Sunday Post. And I said, "Are you for the Sunday Post?" Yeah, I'm here for you to get a photograph, John. I said, right, follow me. So we marched up the line, and of course, there was a lot of dignitaries in the line, Lord Lieutenant introducing everybody. And I just went to the front of the line, and I came right in at the Queen as she was passing. And I said, Your Majesty, my name's John, and I'm from Fife. And she went, Oh, you're from Fife? I said, Yes, Your Majesty. And she says, Oh, I've got relatives in Fife, she said. I said, Oh, who would that be, Your Majesty? She says, Prince William. He's at St Andrews University and he's graduating. I'm coming to Fife next week to see him. I said, That's lovely, Your Majesty. If you're passing methyl, drop in and you'll get a cup of tea. I think she just looked at me
You'd get
like
a shock if she did, I'll tell you.
that. But I thought that was great. And as I said, that person that's, if you put that photograph back again, I'm
Yep.
sure that's the man that done the 3 Minute Mile, Roger Bannister. He was there as well.
Just in there.
Yeah, I'm sure that's him. He was there as well.
Wow.
He was getting awards. As I said, there was a lot of dignitaries there.
How did you feel about that, though? Did you feel like your comfort zone?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm from Methil and, working at TRs, and I'm in Buckingham Palace, and I'm in front of the Queen, and, she just asked, why are you here? I'm saying I'm here because I lost my son to solving issues, and I've managed to campaign and change the laws. She said, John, you've done really well. My advice would be, it was only through education and educating people that you can save lives. So I took that on board, and education was the way forward. I wanted education in all the schools and all the colleges, and I wanted to educate parents most of all, because parents were unaware that they were going to the shops and they were buying deodorants, they were buying air freshener, they're buying air sprays, and all these products have a repellent in them, gas, and they leave them lying about in the cupboards unlocked. And maybe a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or 10-year-old will pick this up. And if you get a good shake and hold it upside down, the product goes to the top and the gas comes to the bottom, and you can inhale the gas out of any aerosol. And
I mean, you would never think about that. They do that with children. I mean, you now have, the washing up tablets. It's like they say, keep them away from children now, because obviously children were starting eating them thinking they were sweeties. So that was,
right.
that was causing a problem. But you would never have thought about just normal deodorants, just day-to-day stuff.
Well,
that you would normally use.
I wouldn't have thought it either, but there is a warning sign on every canister, and it's the sign so small, it says solvent abuse can kill instantly. It does what it says on the can. It can kill you. How it works is you can sniff solvents 100 times, 500 times, and you'll get a walk away free. But you could do it once, first time, and you could drop down dead. It depends on if you take a reaction to that. So it's like a game of Russian roulette. You put the bullet in, you spin it, and you can maybe live through it, but one time or other, that'll have your name on it, and it will kill you. And as I said, thousands of young people have actually died in that process.
Yeah, and you got another supporter online as well, Prince William.
Yeah, well, that's right. I wrote to Prince William as well, because he come under Fife education at the time. He was at St Andrews University, and I wrote him a nice letter, and he says, John, I really support you in theory, and I support your campaign, but I'm restricted at the moment for royal duties, because he's at university. But no, I had a lot of support. I never met anybody that didn't support me. I had support from all the councils in Scotland, and support for all the people. And people knew that what I was doing was for the right thing, to save lives. So when we started up the charity, we had our aims and objectives. We trained volunteers, and we went into every high school, mostly in Fife, and we done education classes, and we done promotion work, and we would work with the police, we worked with the fire service, who were uneducated in this subject. I had to educate the police and the fire service to tell them about solvents, how dangerous it was, and the facts. I had to educate the teachers because they weren't educated. You know, I had to go to conferences in Birmingham and Manchester and London, and I met other people, professional people. One of the people I actually met was a professor called John Ramsey, and he actually was wrote up the St George's University of London. This book contains how many people died in the UK, where they died, how they
Wow.
died, and what subject they died. He was commissioned by the British government to actually make this report every year. But the last report was in 2016 because government funding was pulled on that. Now we no longer have reports. UK was the only country in the world that was actually taking statistics on how many people died and what the situation was like.
Yeah.
I
What
have
was
to
the
say,
natural reaction from the high schools and that, and the teachers and the fire service? I mean, what was their reaction? Was it like mine? Like I never knew this was a thing.
Jim, when I went into that school and I told people stories, horrific stories about people dying with solvents, you know, I told them about how my son died with solvent abuse. They were taken aback with that. And, you know, I had empathy. I told them about the 7-year-old who died. And, you know, they were all shocked. Nobody realized how bad it was. And, you know, I would tell them about other dangers and things like that, about all the products in your house. I said, you go home, you tell your mum and dad that you were talking to me. And he said, there's about 10 to 20 products in our house that could kill anybody. And they did. They went home and they told their mums and dads. Their mums and dads were astonished that their children were actually educating them. But you know,
Mhm.
we had some fun times. You know, we would promote T-shirts. We lost on it. We would give out leaflets, and we'd have you know, games and things like that. And we'd do wee tests, and the kids loved it. The school loved it, and the police and the authorities loved it because I was getting that message across to the public, the dangers on solvent misuse to save lives. So
Mhm.
it was win-win situation completely.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a bit like a Russian roulette. The reality is it as prevalent today, or is it the fact that you've put this in place now? I mean, let's recap. You've done all this and put all this together, and your team and everybody around about your family and everything like that have campaigned all these years. This was basically from was it the point that actually Lee died in 2002? Was it all that way? And at what point was it put in place? To get mandatory checks.
Yeah, well, as soon as we campaigned in the Scottish government, and Lord Advocate made that change in 2004 or 3 or something like that, it was in place straight away that all
Mm-hmm.
shopkeepers had to abide by these rules. And I have to say, majority of shopkeepers did. They picked up on it right away. They didn't want to lose their license for doing anything that they shouldn't do. Bigger stores like Asda's and Tesco and all Sainsbury's, they put software on their tills that when a tin of deodorants or lighter fuel was scanned, it immediately came up and it says check proof of age immediately. So these big companies invested, and
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to make that change. Some of them put the age up to 25 to buy these products, which was really good. So yeah, the shopkeepers and the manufacturers were working with us, not against us. They knew there was a problem, so we were all working in tandem together. And you know, we set up with I used to go to the Scottish Drugs Forum, and I would meet the chief executive of the Scottish Drugs Forum, David Liddell at the time, 20 years ago. He says to me, we're losing the fight on drugs 20 years ago. And 20 years later, the drug deaths have went up, you know. So there is serious issues out there, but I was only concerned with legal substances that was
Yeah.
harming the community, not illegal. You know, it was the legal ones that we were buying in shops, like lighter fuel, deodorant, and air fresheners. These were the products that I was concentrating on to protect people.
No, you would never ever think that though. I mean, as I've said before, it's like you would just see it as a harmful. You know, it's just a kind of aerosol. You know, it's like a hairspray or anything like that you would use normally, and
Jim,
to think that that's how it could be used is
I have to
horrific.
say, another product that children were targeting was petrol. You know, they would actually buy petrol for off-road motorbikes, and they would siphon petrol. And you know, when your petrol gives off a vapor and a volatile substance, you ever been in
Yeah.
a petrol station on a sunny day and you've seen the vapors rising? That's pure gas.
I used to
And
work a lot on my motorbikes when I was younger, and
yeah,
I did feel the effect because we never had any health and safety at that time.
that's right. Because when people are siphoning petrol and things like that, they're getting the fumes. And a lot of young kids knew that, and they could get high on petrol and sniff
Mhm.
it. So all these things were targeted. The other thing was wheelie bins. I learned that young kids would get a lighter and a knife. They would
Yeah.
heat up the knife, put it into the wheelie bin, and the fumes that came off the wheelie bin, they would inhale,
Mhm.
and you could get high on that as a substance. It was unbelievable.
Good
Well,
grief.
yeah, and you know, and then they would actually set fire to the wheelie bin. So all these products were there to be misused in some way or another,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, we've done a lot, and as I said, we set up the charity. I needed to get an office, you know, and we got funding from the Coalfields Regeneration. We got funding from the lottery. We did get a lot of funding, but when you get funding, Jim, it's for something in particular, and you've got to use that funding within a certain time, and you know that's why you get it, and that's what we've done. You know,
Mhm.
so we had an office, we had volunteers, and you know, from Fife College, anybody could volunteer. You know, to get a disclosure, and then we
I
could go on
remember
the
the office at the bottom of Leaving High Street.
yeah, that was it. That was the
Yep.
one. That actually belonged to C&C Mortgage at the time. And
Mhm.
basically, I just went into the office and said, look, I'm looking for an office. Have you got any you can sublet to me? And they said, yeah, we've got one. So that was it. I was in business. I had an office in Leaving, right next to the bus stop. Anybody could come to us. And it made it easy for transport. We were central. I was working with the Fife Drugs Forum at the time, DAPO, Delta, Clued Up, First, Ad Action, all these things. We were all working together to combat drug misuse in Fife.
Yeah,
You know, so
Dapple does a huge amount of work now, don't they?
yeah, DAPO's a great project. They do all sorts of counselling and things like that. And, you
I
know,
think their patron's Clive Russell, is it?
yeah, that's right. I've met him a few times.
Yeah.
He was actually from Metho and things like that, and he's
Mhm.
a nice man. But you know, it's all about supporting each other and things like that. And of course, the Fife DAT, which is the Fife Drug and Alcohol Action Team at the time, they funded us. But things were getting really tough. Recessions, funding was hard to come by. I'd set up this office. I'd set up this charity. It was like a monster got out of control. It was getting big, and you know, and I had to run the committee, and we had to get committee members. I had to get an office manager. We had to employ people. We've got to do pensions. We've got to do accounts. And the one thing I hated doing the most was AGMs. You know,
Yeah.
we've got to do an AGM every year, and we've got to get a guest speaker along, and we've got to put our points across. You know, it was a lot of work.
The
But I was
bureaucratic process that creeps into everything then begins to take out the thunder of what it was meant to be there for in the first place. I mean, I
That's
often
right.
find that. You know, I've
That's right.
run landlord associations, I've run local associations, I've been in industry running businesses, and when you get involved in bureaucracy, it's like, oh no, it almost kills it.
Yeah, I'd created this, and you know, no thinking. I just said I want an office, I want a charity. You know, right there's your office, there's your constitution, there's your aims and objectives. Go and carry it out. It was a lot of work, and it was. I was a driving force though, and you know, I put my mind to it, and you know, we were getting our message across. But the bigger we got, then the more work it became. You know, we
Mhm.
had an office manager and things like that, but it was really, really becoming I had a lot of time in those days because I worked at Tullis Russell's and we went to continental shifts, which means I would work 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 days on. And after 6 weeks of that, we got 18 days off. It worked out, Jim, that I was only working 6 months of the year at Tullis Russell's and had 6 months off. That's why I had the time and energy to actually put this charity into motion and achieve my goals.
It was the right time at the right point, and the opportunity was there for you to change that and change it for the better. I mean, the reality is, you think about the countless lives you've probably saved, and everybody that worked with you have saved over the years as a result of this one event.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people contact me and say, listen, I've really online members of the public, you know, setting up. Listen, I'm really happy that you've actually done this. People phone me, people who get in touch with me, and they say, you know, and I would give them the advice. I wouldn't buy aerosols. I would use roll-on deodorants. I would keep every other project locked up. You know, I met a lot of people who were really thankful that I passed this message to them that actually could have saved their sons' lives and their daughters' lives. So yeah, that was the main goal. And a lot of people did appreciate it, and they got in touch with me and told me that you're doing great. Thanks for that. You've actually done some good. And, you know, I don't know how many lives I've saved, but, you know, if we've saved one, we've saved somebody. The message was out there. The message got across, and it's now in all the schools and colleges, and it's on the national curriculum for excellence for education that solvent misuse must be taught in schools.
Perfect, and that's the achievement, really. The goal has been reached, and the finalisation. So on from there, then you've obviously gone on to political, but we'll not talk about that because that's not we're not to talk about that. But you know, it's a great. You've been a driving force in the community, John, and you've been an absolute treasure and an asset. And you've changed the laws, and you've helped that happen. You've probably saved countless lives as a result of that. And I know that for definite because you said yourself, all the education's put in place now. So you know, I can only thank you for that. Your final thoughts on this for anybody out there? It maybe is going down that route.
Yeah, well, you know, it did become too big for me, Jim. You know, I was also a support worker, and I was supporting people with mental health issues, and I was working full time. And of course, I got elected, and that in itself was a full time job, 7 days a week. And you know, at the point is, you know, it was becoming too much where I had to hand the charity over to and dissolve it and hand all the funds to resolve the national charity for the UK. And I work with them. Even this weekend, I've had parents contacting me and say, I found my daughter taking solvents. What can I do? Can you help? I say, of course I'll help. I'll give you good advice and help you and point you in the right, signpost you in the right charities and agencies that you need to get in touch with. That still goes on every day, Jim. It's unbelievable. But my thoughts for the future, personally, as a bereaved parent, I never had much support for myself. So I would like to start up a group for bereaved parents and have group therapy and as a support group and support people who's actually lost a child and support them in groups so we can actually speak together, sit down, have a coffee, have a biscuit and talk about what happened and help them. I'm 20 years down the line. I've got some recovery, but I still feel that the more people I can help, the more I'm helping myself. And that's how it works for me today.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. A couple of final messages from people. Jacqueline, we can all learn from this, John. So thank you so much for a massive well done to you. And then Sue as well said, well done, John. Complete inspiration as well. You know, John, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story with us and your journey for that. And this will probably go on as well to help people and educate them as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show, John. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, final message, Jim. You know, to get that message across, you've got to deliver it and go to any lengths to deliver it. And that's how it works for me, Jim. A day at a time. That's how I take my day. And, you know, this has been a good day. I've enjoyed it, Jim. I'd like to thank you for asking me on that. I never refuse if anybody asks, because I always want to raise awareness, wherever the time, wherever the place. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, John. Just a wee thought for next week. I have Mary Gardner on, who's going to talk about, she's a nutritionalist and well-being, she's studying. She's an author as well. She'll be talking about mental health, nutrition and wellness for next week's Sunday slot. So thanks very much again, John. Really appreciate it. And we'll see everybody else next week at 10:30 for the next